Coverage you can count on. This is a WTVM Storm Team 9 special. Keeping you safe in a storm. Sponsored by Magnolia Manor. Live life to the fullest.
There's still families that haven't recovered 5 years later.
It felt like a bad dream that you can't wake up from.
I couldn't imagine what those people had gone through.
By 2:03, we had the first tornado, and by 2:06, we knew we had fatalities.
You're looking for your daughter, call for your daughter.
A huge sense of guilt for weeks after. What could you have said differently? What could you have done differently?
Welcome into our show, everyone. I'm Chief Meteorologist Eric Kincaid. In the next half hour, we're going to bring you some information that you can act on to be safe when severe weather threatens our area. And make no mistake, it's happened before and will happen again. 5 years ago, many homes here were leveled by a powerful EF4 tornado that was on the ground for almost 70 miles, was a mile wide at its largest point, and claimed 23 lives here in Beauregard. We're going to take you back to that day and hear stories of loss and heartache, but also of resilience, rebuilding, and recovery. Now, as we start the conversation about being safe in severe weather, it's important to know what kind of threats that we might face around here. In the past 10 years, tornadoes get a lot of the attention. They're actually the #1 cause of weather-related deaths in both Alabama and Georgia during that time. Now, I don't like to use the term severe weather season because we know severe weather knows no season. It can happen any time of the year or any time of the day if conditions are favorable. Now, we don't want to discount late fall into the winter time. We get more tornadoes in the southeast from November to February than in any other part of the entire country. But if you look at the numbers in March, April, and into early May, you can see a big increase in both Alabama and Georgia. It's these springtime storms that happen when the atmosphere is favorable to produce large supercell storms that could produce monster twisters capable of having winds more than 200 miles per hour. It was one of those storms 5 years ago that we'll never forget. We talked to meteorologists, first responders, and survivors too, to get a full picture of that day and a timeline of disaster.
You knew that morning when we got up that it was a tornado day. It felt different, it was dark, it was humid, it was kind of eerie out.
Meteorologists and officials like Rita Smith had been discussing the possibility of severe storms and tornadoes for days leading up to March 3rd, 2019.
We had people who thought, yeah, this is just getting amped up too much. It's not going to be that bad. We're going to ride it out. And we had some that didn't live to tell their stories.
Meteorologist Dana Barker was working with WLTZ at the time and remembers the moment the day went from bad to worse.
And actually the first warning was from Muskogee County on that one radar indicated tornado around 1 o'clock, and it's like getting on a roller coaster. You couldn't get off the roller coaster because warnings kept on coming.
We've got this storm, the tornado warning, in upwards of 115 miles per hour. This one prompting the tornado warning for northern Muskogee and southern Harris County. That was when the tornado was on the ground, lofting debris up into the sky.
For more than 4 hours, 7 tornadoes left scars totaling more than 150 miles on the Chattahoochee Valley. None of them, however, were as damaging or deadly as the EF4 monster that churned through Beauregard, Alabama.
There's your tornado. So let's track that up to the north and east one more time. Yeah, Lauren, go ahead.
The Weather Service is very concerned about this. Understandably, they're saying it is a confirmed large and extremely dangerous tornado, and they're about to issue a tornado emergency on this.
Kayla Grimes, her dad, stepmom, and best friend Taylor Thornton had been on a camping trip and returned to Beauregard in advance of the storm.
My stepmom, she was very anxious and was in a rush, and so I knew that something was wrong.
Kayla and Taylor were able to get into the bathtub moments before the tornado swept the mobile home from its foundation.
We all lined up, and I put my hand over Taylor and I was like, it's going to be okay. And Sheila, my stepmom, she just kind of crowded over us.
Kayla came to about 3 days later at a hospital in Birmingham. Her injuries were extensive, and as she recovered physically, mentally she had to come to grips with tremendous loss.
So I was just kind of overwhelmed. I didn't really know what to do.
For the first time, Kayla and one of her rescuers from that day, a firefighter named Wes Jones, were able to sit down together with us to share the story of survival. Wes made his way toward Lee County Road 38 soon after the tornado moved on, first by truck and then on foot. He and a Beauregard School resource officer, Brent Davis, made their way to Kayla's dad's property.
Once we determined that this is ground zero, we went into full search and rescue mode.
They found Kayla about 75 yards from where the mobile home once stood. They quickly got her free from a tree she was pinned under, got her to a clearing, and took stock of her extensive injuries, putting a makeshift splint on her leg that they were able to fashion out of sticks and gauze.
If we didn't get to her into an ambulance with professionals with more equipment, as fast as we could, she would have a better shot at that point.
Jones shies away from the use of the word hero to describe his actions.
When people ask me that, I wasn't the hero that day. I was just doing my job. To me, the hero to me is sitting right here beside me. I've told her in the past, she was the one person that got me through that day. Being able to find her, make sure she was alive and got her to safety. She was my mission at that point.
The news their daughter was found alive was a relief to Kayla's mom and stepdad, but there would be no such relief for the Thornton family.
It felt like a bad dream that you can't wake up from.
David drove to Ground Zero in an effort to find Taylor, getting out and walking through the debris field.
And I saw the first responders coming up the hill, and they were carrying Kayla up the hill. They took me down where they said there was another girl at, and that's when I walked down there with them, and that's where Taylor was.
Sheila Creech, Kayla's stepmom, was also found deceased in the same area. The Thorntons were soon faced with the devastating realization of a life without their precious 10-year-old girl.
I've been asked where I'm at in my healing process, and I'm still sitting on the ground on 38 beside my little girl.
But although losing a child is a wound that will never heal completely, the Thorntons chose not to give up.
Go to work, love on my son, love my wife, and be a friend to my friends, and be something that gives back in our community.
Today, David has joined the ranks of those he saw on that Sunday afternoon, helping to rescue survivors and comfort the families. He's now a volunteer firefighter with the Beauregard Fire Department.
It's not about a paycheck, it's about helping somebody who needs help on their worst day. And I definitely wanted to be part of something like that.
5 years later, this tragedy continues to impact lives and teach lessons.
Hold close and tight to your family. We're not promised tomorrow.
And all of it was just because of friends and family. I definitely could not have done it without them being right by my side.
19 of the 23 victims in the Beauregard tornado were in mobile or manufactured homes. Now, even though mobile homes make up only 6% of housing in the United States, they account for more than 50% of tornado-related deaths. Now, this is due to a lot of reasons. A higher percentage of mobile homes in tornado-prone areas or in places that get a lot of tornadoes during the nighttime. Now, look, we're certainly not here to talk down to those that live in mobile homes. They're a safe, affordable place to raise a family. I even lived in one when I was a kid, but they're not the place for you to be when severe weather threatens. There's just not a safe room that we can tell you to go to. Your severe weather safety plan will have to start earlier than a lot of other folks, perhaps as soon as that tornado watch is issued. And you'll have to answer questions like, do you have a shelter on site or do you have to drive to one? How is all that going to work in the middle of the night? And do they accept pets if you have to bring them with you? Now, those are questions that you're going to need to know the answer to well in advance of severe weather. And luckily, we've made it easy for you to get the answers. On the weather tab at WTVM.com, we have our severe weather guide. If you go there and click on county shelter information, you'll be taken to a place where you can select your county to check out the resources that you need to know about. Also, any other extra information from your county EMA director. And if you live on a college campus, we have information from some of the major colleges in the area too.
In the event you can't make it out of your mobile home, there are some tricks to making it more survivable. When a mobile home is destroyed in a tornado, it's mostly because the anchoring system fails and the home then flips over. Pan systems of anchoring are more likely to fail, while tie-down straps, if installed properly and maintained regularly, are the preferred way of anchoring a home to the ground. No matter where you happen to be, we want to make sure you have a way to get alerts as soon as possible, especially in the middle of the night.
All right, my weather radio is going off, I'm up, and it has my attention, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we need to seek shelter. You see, a weather radio is going to go off for a tornado warning anywhere within a county, but we know that tornado warnings often are only issued for parts of counties, so we need to do a little more investigating, tuning into WTVM, for example, or checking the WTVM weather app. It's going to be a great resource for us to tell us whether or not we are in the danger area, and we'll talk a little bit more about setting those alerts up on the app a bit later in the show. All right, let's say we know we're in danger. We've got to go to a safe place. We certainly don't wait to see if we can see the storm outside or check social media to see what folks are saying there. We have to act now because we may only have a few minutes. Now's also the time to consider what it takes to keep your entire family safe. Do you have pets? Somebody with limited mobility or an oxygen tank? An infant that would use a car seat? Your individual plan has to take into account these special circumstances. But if we're upstairs, the first order of business, get low. I'll see you downstairs. Now, a basement works best, but the goal is to be on the lowest floor of whatever building that you happen to be in, like small rooms too, closets, bathrooms, and hallways. We can fine-tune this further by saying that we want to be in a room that's close to the middle of our house. It doesn't have a whole lot of windows. Now, this is the ideal place for us to be here. It's a room that puts as many walls between us and the outside as possible, and we're ready to ride out the storm. You may also want to think about things that you can use to protect yourself from flying debris, like blankets or even pillows. Now, practice makes perfect. Just like you probably have a plan for if there was a fire in your home, and just like everybody in your home needs to practice that plan from time to time, the same is true for your severe weather safety plan. Make sure your devices are charged up too, so you can stream Storm Team 9 in your safe place. The only thing we haven't accounted for, our severe weather safety kit. Coming up after the break, Storm Team 9 will get together and tell you the exact things you need that could save your life in severe weather. And later in the show, we talk about ways you can be a good consumer of weather information, what you need to know first before you take action.
Welcome back. One of the easiest things you can do right now to prepare for severe weather is to make a severe weather kit. So we're at the hardware store and we're going to make sure that we grab a buggy and do some shopping. Today, some easy things that you can do to prepare for the next storm for you and your family. Flashlight and extra batteries are a given because you know the power is going to go out. We know how much we rely on our devices and our phones. So make sure you have devices like these charged up, ready to go, so you can just plug in when push comes to shove and you need some juice in your phone. The NOAA Weather Radio is another good source. The TV is not going to be working most likely, but this will give you a reliable forecast and distribute necessary warnings before, during, and after a disaster strikes. Make sure you have a raincoat and some boots or sturdy shoes so that you can go and survey your property. You never want to walk on a debris field with bare feet. Make sure that you have a whistle in your severe weather kit to ensure that you can call out for help if necessary. From the hardware store to the grocery store, let's go to Ariana and Allie-Ann.
Some of those items that you can include are a 3-day supply of water and non-perishable foods. So for your water, you're going to want to have 1 gallon of water per person per day. And then for some of your non-perishable foods, canned goods are great types of food. You can get canned fruit, canned vegetables. You can even get some granola bars and some cereal. Some other items that you can add in your emergency kit are first aid items like Band-Aids, ointments, any type of medication that you may need. We don't want to forget the toiletries and even items for the smallest members of the family.
If you have an infant or a small child in the family, make sure you're stocked up on those diapers and baby formula for dire times. And then another great item to have is going to be some ways to entertain your family. Again, not completely necessary, but it does really help pass the time by during these situations. So maybe a deck of playing cards or some markers and some coloring books. And then of course, we want to include those furry friends too. They're family members as well. So make sure you have enough food to help feed them and get them through this situation as well. And to round off your entire severe weather kit, make sure you have a list of all your important documents that you can have, again, stashed away in that box with everything else.
This should be enough to get you started for your severe weather kit.
Tyler, don't forget your helmet.
The helmet, one of the most important things to remember for you and your family to make sure that y'all are protected from debris that may come your way.
Thanks to the weather team for putting that together. A well-stocked safety kit, including protection for your head like a helmet, can mean the difference between life and death when it comes to the worst-case scenario, a direct hit from a tornado. And while tornadoes do get a lot of the attention, it's not the only weather threat that we need to be alert to around here. Wind, lightning, and flooding all have their place on the list of the top 6 weather-related deaths in Alabama and Georgia over the last 10 years. Take a severe thunderstorm, for example. In order for a storm to get a warning that would make your weather radio go off, it has to have winds of 58 miles per hour or greater, or hail the size of a quarter or larger. If a storm doesn't meet those criteria, there's no warning. But that doesn't mean a storm like that may not be dangerous. Pop-up summer storms can routinely have winds gusting between 40 and 50 miles per hour. That can knock down trees and tree limbs, and those storms will also have frequent lightning too. While there may not be a formal warning, we're still going to be with you for storms like that via alerts on our WTVM weather app. If you want to see how those work for your app, we've got a video up on the severe weather guide that we mentioned earlier in the show. Now, those can include a first alert for lightning, sometimes well in advance of any storm. And that can be crucial for when you're on a boat, on the golf course, or enjoying some time by the lake, river, or beach. Now, the majority of lightning deaths happen in the summer months when folks are enjoying recreational activities. And a very large majority of lightning victims, more than 80%, are males. Guys, we've got to do better. The first time that we see lightning or hear thunder, we need to be inside a building somewhere safe. Even being in a car is safer than being out in the open or under a tree. When it comes to flooding, a majority of flood deaths occur in cars, trucks, and SUVs. And they happen when cars try to drive over a road that's covered up with water and there may not be a road there in the first place. Or when rushing water can cause a car to be swept away. The National Weather Service has a great motto for this: turn around, don't drown. After the break, a final note from Beauregard, how you can be a critical part of the warning process. Tonight, we end our show where it began, here in Beauregard, Alabama. I come to you now from inside Providence Baptist Church. This was the hub of recovery 5 years ago for the victims of the devastating tornado. Donations of food, clothing, and money came pouring in. It hosted a presidential visit and remains a severe weather shelter for the residents here. But it also held a capacity crowd at a memorial service honoring the 23 victims who lost their lives. And ultimately, that's what all this is about in the weather enterprise. We want to prevent the loss of life in severe storms by making sure you have the information to make informed decisions about your safety and your family's safety. And there are some things that you can do to help us with that process. One, know your place on a map. All severe weather watches and warnings are based on counties, and we're also going to display the radar, including the exact location of rotation or tornadic debris on a map with the counties. Know yours and the ones that surround it. Be careful what you see and share on social media. The worst case scenarios for severe, tropical, and winter weather get a lot of clicks, likes, and shares, but they rarely come true. And sharing things like that without proper context may even prompt some people not to pay attention to actual warnings from actual meteorologists when they're issued. We're going to bring you accurate weather information in a clear, calm manner without hype or hyperbole. Whenever a county in our coverage area goes under a tornado warning, we're going to be with you on TV and our streaming platforms until the threat is over or until the warning expires. It's our promise to you to alert you first, to bring you accurate weather information so you can protect yourself and your family.
We grieve with those who lost so much 5 years ago, and we will never forget the 23 souls taken in this horrible storm. But the stories of resilience and survival inspire hope. We will never stop working in the weather community to keep people safe, to try to deliver the earliest warning, to make sure people have the tools and resources that they need to protect themselves in the face of the worst that Mother Nature has to offer. And you won't be alone. We'll be right here with you, before, during, and after. It's our commitment to you to keep you safe in a storm.
Just about does it for our show tonight. From all of us here at Storm Team 9, good night.
This has been a WTVM Storm Team 9 special, keeping you safe in a storm. Sponsored by Magnolia Manor. Live life to the fullest.